Yeah, I think first of all, we're super pumped and excited to be back at DKR Saturday, 11 a.m. kick. I think this thing is really starting to become a great home field advantage for us. Our fans have been tremendous all year long. Looking forward to playing in front of them again. You know, there's a lot that goes into the preparation to go play a game on a Saturday. And then you have moments in game or pregame that you look forward to. And, there's one for me that I always look forward to is when I first arrive at the stadium, I like to go walk the field and to see our students already running down the stairs, getting in their seats, seeing their energy, their excitement, that definitely fuels me. And so looking forward to seeing y'all Saturday, students. Let's make sure we're in there rocking and rolling early, but also for our players, that they've put in a lot of really good work this week. And excited for them to again, get in front of our fans and play our brand of football, our style of football against a really quality opponent in Iowa State. These guys are a good football team. They're sound, great defensive team, ball control offense that has explosive players on that side of the ball. So it's going to be a heck of a ball game.
Thanks, Coach. Danny, start us off.
Steve, going off that, what stands out about this Iowa State defense? What do they do good on that side of the ball?
Well, I mean, they do it all, right? They lead our conference in rush defense. They lead our conference in pass defense. They lead our conference in total defense. They lead our conference in scoring defense. So what don't they do well is probably a better question. They do a good job of minimizing the run game. They do a good job of minimizing the explosive passes. They do a really good job of playing red zone defense. They do a great job on third down. And they keep you out of the end zone. So that's kind of what they do well.
Jeff, go ahead.
Sark, kind of looking year over year when you watch the tape, what's allowed your interior defensive line guys to have the kind of impact they've had through these first 6 games? What's changed for that group?
Well, I think it's total and complete buy-in to Coach Davis. I think Coach Bo gets a lot of credit for that, of the fundamentals, the techniques that he teaches. He's coached a lot of great players over his career, whether it's in college or the NFL. I think the players buying into that and then learning it and then applying it in game. I think too, schematically with what we're doing over there, we're allowing those guys to really go play and use their length and their size to be impactful. And then I think these guys are good pass rushers too. I know they're big, but they affect the pocket. They squeeze the pocket and they affect the quarterback. We're starting to see some sacks out of that group, but more importantly, they shrink the pocket and they do a good job in the pass game as well.
Dennis, you're up.
Coach, you've worked with a lot of quarterbacks in your time. Does Quinn remind you of anybody, his game or his demeanor? And are there some things that are just unique to Quinn?
I think skill set wise, he's different. They've all been different. I mean, going back to Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez, John David Booty, Jake Locker, Cody Kessler, Matt Ryan, Tua, Mac Jones. They're all different. They've all got a different skill set, a different personality. I will say the one thing that Quinn reminds me of, the one person is Matt Leinart. The moment was never too big for Matt. He's I always referred to him as a cool customer. And I kind of think Quinn's got a lot of that in him as well. He performs at an optimal level when most people might get a little tense or tight. He just remains calm and executes what he's supposed to go do.
Kirk, go ahead.
It's a shame you haven't had any good quarterbacks to work with, Steve. Some of the players
you got to recruit, man,
and develop, right? Some of the players were saying you came up with the term revenge tour, and I was curious if you've done that before. Do you put posters up, and what benefit does that give the team?
I've never really done it before. Every year you're always trying to find the right buttons to push, emotionally, psychologically for your team. And, I felt like last season we let a lot of games slip away. And, when you go through it that way, you can hear a lot of the negativity that comes with that, of what's wrong, why can't they finish, what happens in the second half. The players aren't in good condition. The players aren't strong enough. The coaches don't make adjustments, right? They hear all that stuff. And you have to find a way to kind of flip the script and get it to where, well, what are we doing about it and how are we going to go about it? And then what's our, what's our mission? And inevitably there's a lot of these games that we're going back into to play these same teams. And there's got to be a little bit of sense of revenge, and not so much revenge on the opponent, revenge our own actions of how we performed in those moments in those games to ultimately go finish those ball games.
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, just wanted to ask about PK. Obviously last year was difficult on the defense, and looks like y'all have improved pretty much across the board this year. We don't get to talk to him often, but, I'm curious from your standpoint, what do you think he's done that's been able to make that defense so effective? Is it just the year-over-year growth, having some more of his guys in the system? What do you attribute that improvement to?
I think there's multiple things. I think one, I think there's a level of continuity on the defensive staff. I think they're working really well together. Last year was the first year a lot of those guys had worked together. And I think that with that, it's one thing to put together a game plan. It's another for the coaches to understand so that the players can understand the play caller too. It's like on offense, we have we go into a game with a lot of plays, but what am I going to call and when am I going to call it and why am I calling it? So I think there's a lot to that to be said. I think too, there's familiarity, there's trust from the players' perspective on fundamentals, techniques, and schemes, and doing their job. 3, I think we've instilled a style of play defensively that is drastically different from the way we played a year ago. I think our effort, our physicality, I think definitely is showing up. So there's a lot that goes into this. But in the end, as coaches, we get over wins and losses probably quicker than the players do to some degree. When Saturday was done, Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we're on to the next opponent. Right. And we, I know everybody wants to keep bringing up last game. We're focused on the next game because we know that's what we're judged off of, is how we go do it again the next week. And so, I think that PK has got that mindset, of back to work. He's a blue collar guy. And I think that our staff and our players have adopted that personality and are playing that way.
Terry, go ahead.
Coach Sarkisian, Hudson Card. How is he doing? And does he understand how much Texas needs him to continue to prepare as if the next play you call will require him to take the lead like he did during Alabama and afterwards?
Hud's doing great. He's probably more healthy now than he's been in a month. Which is great. I wish I probably wanted to play him a little bit more last week, but he just wasn't healthy enough. It wasn't worth risking that injury, that thing getting any worse. But I definitely think he understands the value in his preparation. I mean, you don't get put in the second quarter against Alabama and not think that, man, that can happen at any moment, any time, and then go start, games after that. So Hudson he's a pro that way. He gives everything he has to this program. He's a selfless guy. He's a great teammate, great leader. So, a lot of respect for him in our building, from coaches, players, staff, for what he did before he got in the game, for what he did while he played and what he does now. He prepares like he's a starting quarterback. And I have no hesitation if he got put in the game for him to go operate our offense and do it at a really high level. The week before he's not the starter, guy throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against a really good defense. So he's prepared. He'll be ready to go if his number's called.
Roger, you're up.
Coach, what's the challenge as the play caller and the head coach for throughout the week, coming up with, the plan you like, the script you like, still being the head coach, but, keeping that offense creative and fresh?
I think the first is I'm surrounded by a lot of really good coaches. Our offensive staff is got a bunch of really good minds in there. They're great motivators. They're great teachers. They're creative. And there's a lot of dialogue. I don't pretend to do this by myself. I never have, this is not my offense. This is our offense. We work collaboratively together. We try to come up with a plan that we think puts our players in the best position to be successful. So I don't have to assume that entire challenge of putting a game plan together week in and week out, whether it's Coach Flood, Coach Choice, working the run game, Coach Marion, Coach Milwee, a lot of our other staff members doing the pass game and then tying it all together. That's the key to the drill. And then as we get closer to the ball game, I start trying to play the game in my head of how I'm going to call it. And then I try to really convey that to the staff and to the players so that the players understand of kind of how and why we're writing the script the way we do. And then ultimately, what we're going to try to get done come Saturday. And then hopefully it plays out that way. And if it doesn't, then you got to make the necessary adjustments in game so that you can perform still.
Joe, go ahead.
I know you're getting Jaleel back this week. I know JT's played well, but Andre in that kind of modified 6 offensive lineman role, how do you think he's helped the tight end room, and does he have hands?
Andre has been a vital asset to us offensively. Anytime you can create that level of physicality at the point of attack, I think it forces the defense to do things that maybe they normally wouldn't do, or have to at least have a plan to defend that. This is not new to us. It's systematically, when Coach Flood and I were together at Alabama, we did it with a young man there for a couple of years. When we were in Atlanta, we actually did it some. So this is kind of a piece to our puzzle to make us go. And Andre provides that. It just goes back to the old adage of, the more things we can do really well, hopefully the harder we are to defend. So personnel groupings are part of what we do. And that's a personnel grouping that I think is advantageous for us and has been beneficial to us. So I'm not sure how good Andre's hands are, especially with the big gloves and the tape and all that good stuff.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, are top edge rushers more born than made because of the natural quickness they need?
Well, I think it's both. One, you have to have the skill set to do it, length, quick twitch, effort, all those things matter. Right. But then I do think you need the fundamentals and techniques to take your game to another level. And, Will McDonald, just to use him as an example for Iowa State, he's got great length. He's twitchy. He's a smart player. He recognizes different pass sets and goes to the moves necessary to try to get to the quarterback, and he plays with great effort. I go to the 2 kids at Alabama, Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, a little bit different skill set, but in the end, they have length, they have twitch, they play with great effort, they're smart. So I think as guys start to mature, it's one thing just to be able to run around a guy and get a sack. It's another to have enough tools in your toolbox to utilize that to get to the quarterback. But in the end, the best pass rushers I've ever seen are high effort, high motor guys. A lot of the sacks don't come clean. They come when the quarterback has to hold the ball or moves in the pocket, and they get there with second effort.
Got time for the 3 last ones in queue. Go ahead, Ryan.
Coach, you've had Card and Quinn kind of come in and out, and now you add a guy like Jaleel Billingsley to the squad. Last week, the offense seemed to be clicking on all cylinders. You just talk about the offensive chemistry now this week, moving into Iowa State overall.
I think we've got great chemistry. I think that goes back to the offseason. I think our culture has affected that. We've got a selfless group, and nobody's, complaining about the ball or style of play or runs or passes or whatever that is. I think we've got a group of guys that want to win. They understand what their roles are going into each game. We ask a lot of them. We're not a simplistic offense by any means. And so we really try to push them mentally and physically week in and week out. Hopefully by doing so, they continue to improve, that we continue to improve, and that they're creating value for themselves by the things that we're asking them to do. That will be beneficial for them, not only in the short term while they're here at Texas, but hopefully for the long term of their career, of trying to fulfill their dreams of playing in the NFL. So, I'm proud of our guys. I do think we've got great continuity in that room. I think they work well together. I think guys pull for one another. I think, Quinn is pulling for Hudson when he's in there. Hudson's pulling for Quinn. Receivers are pulling for one another when the ball's going their way. The running back room, if you ever watch when a running back scores, the first guy generally to greet him is one of the other running backs in that room. So all in all, that's what you love as a coach, when you can have a team full of guys that play like that. That's one of the joys of doing what we do.
Two last ones. Jeff, go ahead.
Sergeant Sean Jameson was saying this week when he made the decision to come back, how he and Coach Joseph sat down and had some honest conversations about where he needed to improve and what he needed to work on. Where did you feel like he needed to improve, and where have you seen that growth from him at corner this year?
Well, I think DJ, one thing we talked about with him was playing with real confidence, and you gain confidence from being disciplined in your approach of, what's my fundamental, what's my technique, what's my key, where's my help, where are my issues, so that you can play fast and confident in knowing what to do. And that can't be a sometime thing. It's got to be a consistent thing. There's got to be a level of consistency in doing that. And I think we really challenged him on that. I think also, DJ's not the biggest guy. That doesn't mean that he can't be physical, and trust in the physicality that he has. I think that he's tackling better on the perimeter than he did a year ago, especially on the perimeter screen game. And then not panicking. I think last year we saw a couple deep balls. I'll reference the Texas Tech game. There was a couple deep balls in that game a year ago that got over his head. This year, you're just seeing a level of confidence of him trusting his speed, staying on top. And then when the ball's in the air, having the confidence to make the play. And we saw that against West Virginia 2 weeks ago on the deep post. We saw it last week versus OU on the deep post with the interception. So he's a talented guy. I think that his game has evolved and has grown, and he's a much more complete player than he was a year ago.
Last one, Kirk, you're up.
Yeah, Steve, that's good. Nobody's complaining about wanting the ball more, but Tariq Milton's got to be begging for more targets this week, right, against his old team?
Well, it's always, transfers, and when you end up playing your old team, that's always kind of tough. The guy spent a lot of time at Iowa State with that coaching staff, with those players, captain, all that. And so now here comes this opportunity this week to play against them. I'm sure there's a feeling in there inside of him that is a little bit indifferent to some degree, but in the end, he's been a great teammate here. He's been really mature. He's been an awesome teammate. He works extremely hard, and hopefully he gets some opportunities this week.